Good morning. It is Wednesday, March 15th, and this is Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Although I am not Dr. Stites, I am Dr. Dana Hawkinson, sitting in for Dr. Stites, our normal captain of this ship. Today we meet a young woman who did more than just follow doctor's orders. She answered the challenge and put in the work, month after month, until she got back to the sport she loves. We'll also reunite her with two sports medicine professionals who helped her achieve her goals. But first, let's do morning rounds. Dr. Jacob Brubaker is live in Surprise, Arizona for Royal Spring Training. He is a hand surgeon here at the health system and somebody who I've worked with quite a bit, and recently we've had a couple patients together. But he also cares for Royals players as the assistant team physician. Good morning, Jacob. How's spring training going?
Good morning, Dana. It's been 80 degrees and sunny, and we're winning a lot of games and leading the Cactus League, so things are going great.
That's great. Well, we hope that they can bring that into the regular season and, of course, the postseason. So anyways, most people know about rehab after a surgery, absolutely. But you preach about the importance of prehab. What is prehab and why is it important?
We typically think about prehabilitation, as the time between an injury and when a surgery occurs. And usually that's a period of time where we're looking to get inflammation out of the area that we're going to operate on and restoring the range of motion to give you the best chance of success after a surgery.
So obviously very important to prepare to get ready for that surgery, for sure. So the word prehab is tricky because it has a second meaning. It can also mean working out to prevent an injury in the first place. What kind of prehab should youth players be doing?
Youth players, a lot of this comes down to sport-specific type stretching and strengthening programs. With baseball on our mind, there's a number of injuries that can be common in young athletes, particularly those that are interested in pitching, and a good stretching and core strengthening program can be critical to keeping them out from having injuries.
And then just a little add-on to that question, a piggyback. So with what you said, how important is it for those athletes to be doing other sports and activities as well? Or is it just good sticking with that one activity or sport that they are doing?
We think it's critical to be diverse in your training approach, and that often involves taking a break from very repetitive type activities, especially with young kids as they're growing and developing. It's critical to have some balance, and that often involves getting involved in other sports.
That's right, and that means not being on PlayStation for 8 hours a day as well. Get those thumb injuries.
I agree.
So let's talk rehab. What's the hardest part of rehab in your opinion?
The hardest part of rehab, I think, is it's a grind. And I think, it's not something that happens in 1 minute or 1 hour or 1 day. It can often be a several week or even several month program to get back to the level of activity that somebody previously had. And I think that that ability to just stick with it and day in and day out work towards your goals is the most challenging part. It can particularly be slow in the beginning as you're quite far from the goal, but as you get closer, you get more and more excited as you're getting closer to achieving your goal.
Yeah, that commitment is vitally important. So you are a hand specialist. Any advice for non-athletes who want to keep their hands strong or healthy?
I think keeping your hands healthy and strong is relatively easy because the hands are just something you can't ignore. You're using them every day. So I tell people that they ask me this question. I say, just live your life. Be active and do the things that you want to do. And almost all of those things involve using your hands, and that in turn keeps you flexible, the joints moving, and those types of things. So I just tell people to go and do the things that they love, whether that's gardening or any of those kinds of activities, and that's going to be plenty of exercise and mobility for the hands.
All right, I think that is great universal advice. So thank you very much, Dr. Brubaker.
You got it. Have a good day.
Yep. Now, let's meet Maggie Richardson and her mom, Audra. Maggie suffered a knee injury playing volleyball. She needed surgery and worked through months of physical therapy. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How are you guys doing today?
I'm good, a little tired, but awake.
I was going to say, are you excited to be up here and doing this?
I think so. I'm excited.
Well, good. We are excited too. We definitely want to hear your comments and your story. And here with me in the studio are two sports medicine professionals who helped get Maggie back to 100%. Krisha Crane is a certified athletic trainer, and Kyle Martin is a physical therapist. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Maggie, you love playing softball, but in August 2020, you got hurt playing a different sport. How'd you get injured?
I was at a volleyball pre-tryout open gym, and it was like the first day, and I went up for a volleyball hit like a spike, and I came down on one leg, and it kind of like shifted, my knee shifted, and then I fell on the ground and cried and all this stuff, and but then I tore the ACL and meniscus. So.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of alluded to it just a little bit, but what was that first instant like, and then the first, few minutes and hours after that? Were you just thinking about what's going on with me right now, obviously, but what about my future in 3 or 6 months and softball? What were you thinking?
I was really disappointed overall. I just was my whole life, half of the stuff that makes me happy is being active and playing sports and working with teammates and all of that. So I was really disappointed. I remember just crying to my mom, just being why me? Why this happen? I can't play the things that I love for the next however many months. And but I mean, that just really helped me find new things and other things that made me happy other than just playing sports, and things that are I don't know, just made me appreciate other things in life more.
Yeah, and then Audra, hearing that from your baby girl, what were you thinking in those first few minutes or hours when you learned of that injury as well?
We didn't know what was going on at first because it was my day for carpool, and she never came out, and so we were confused. But Caitlin, who is our athletic trainer at Blue Valley High, contacted me, kind of let me know what was going on, and it was overwhelming. Her father and I we didn't know what was ahead of us. It's shocking when you see your child and they literally cannot walk. I mean, she couldn't put any weight on it. She was really upset, but through Caitlin, we were able to get in the next day, I think, and we were able to start the process and be seen through KU Sportsman.
Well, I think overwhelming is probably a very good word to use. So, Krisha, talk to us about Maggie's injury. How bad is an ACL tear and a meniscus tear?
So unfortunately, though this is a common injury, it's also a traumatic knee injury. It has to do with anterior translation of the lower leg with some internal rotation as well. Unfortunately, this can happen in common athletic instances like slowing down suddenly, change in direction, planting your foot and pivoting. It can happen in Maggie's circumstance where you jump up and you just don't land right, and it puts too much force on that knee. And it can also happen in contact. Usually most injuries are non-contact injuries, unfortunately, but the meniscus just kind of 50% of the time it can happen with knee injuries. It has to do with that internal force, and so you get lucky if you don't have a meniscal injury, or unfortunately you do have a meniscal injury.
Yeah, so I mean it's like double trouble.
Yep,
almost,
that's exactly right.
And then, so Kyle, Maggie started physical therapy before she had surgery. What kind of prehab was she doing?
Yeah, it's kind of like Dr. Brubaker mentioned earlier. First thing we want to do is restore range of motion. Our number one goal is just to get her knee fully extended and fully bending as much as possible, and then working to minimize her swelling as much as we can, and also as well as activating her quad and making sure that that's turned on, because that's most important after surgery. So she was doing things that were helping to bend her knee, straighten her knee, and then just a lot of quad specific type exercises.
And that is turning on the quad. What is the quad?
So the quad's the thigh muscle on top of your leg or on top of your knee. That just kind of helps to make your leg straight or extend your knee. So if you're in a seated position, you kick your leg straight up, that would be your quad muscle that kind of works there. It's actually 4 different muscles that kind of work as in the quadriceps group, but all 4 of those need to be functioning to have optimal outcomes after surgery.
And would you say, in the terms of maybe universal prehab, as we have talked about, is doing leg exercises specifically for the quad probably one of the better things you can do to help support the knee itself?
I think so. Because post-operatively our goals are to, kind of similar to prehab, is the week 1 we want to get the knee perfectly straight, or as straight as we can get it, turn the quad back on and minimize swelling. The importance to this is that every time we take a step, the quad gives us control of our knee. If our quad's not strong and not turned on, then that knee can hyperextend and puts that new ACL graft at risk of re-rupture.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Audra, you took a lot of photos and videos during Maggie's rehab. Here's a photo with some giant inflatable pants. Those always look fun. Kyle, what is this device doing though?
Yeah, so this is a recovery device that we have at our performance center. This specific device is our Normatec compression pants. They work from toe all the way up to your hip. We use this kind of late phase when someone's doing high volume strength training, including agility, jumping, and sport specific training, just to help their legs recover faster and kind of flush out lactic acid and muscle soreness in there. It has 5 different inflatable areas or bladders throughout the cuff, and it's got a systematic process in which that it kind of starts at the foot, works its way all the way up to the thigh, and then kind of repeats for any period of time that that athlete is on that recovery device.
Yeah, I'd probably pay double to wear that to my next formal event with a nice top hat and a coat.
I agree.
But I haven't worn it. Maggie, what was it like for you wearing that?
They're super, they feel super weird, but honest, they feel like marshmallows on your legs. But there's honestly, it's very soothing, I guess, especially after you've done like a high intensity workout, like Kyle said. It's like kind of soothing and like kind of massages your muscles, and yeah, it's great. Honestly, I think I always would choose between that and icing, and it's just they're very different. But I think I say I like it better than icing. But yeah.
It sounds like a fun sensation. I don't know what's better than marshmallows on your legs, unless you cover them in velvet, maybe. But Maggie, we also know you did a lot of physical therapy at home. Krisha or Kyle, do you think Maggie did better than the average patient in terms of at-home work? Because we know that can be difficult as well.
Yes, Maggie was one of the most compliant athletes that we have had here at the Performance Center. She is a star student when it comes to that. You know, you give her an explanation of the exercise, the importance of the exercise, and she's going to make sure that she takes that home and that she does it on a regular basis. That's one thing we can count on for sure.
So that's an internal drive and commitment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, well, we also have another photo. Maggie, it looks like you're doing homework here as well. Did you study your own injury?
Right there, I'm reading I'm reading and annotating article that my doctor who gave my surgery wrote about the importance of mental health in athletes' recovery. And I studied that a lot because I know it's really hard, especially during the COVID season. I know just in general with COVID, people's mental health were really affected, but I had I had a knee injury that put me out of a lot of the different things that I loved. And so just maintaining that mental health. And so I studied a little bit about that, but also on top of that, in freshman biology, which is the year that I was, we did a research project about a disease or a injury or something of your choice, and a new form of recovery for that. And so I actually, since I was going through the knee surgery at the time, I researched ACL tears and alternate ways of fixing it in that moment. And so obviously there was like using the like patella tendon that I used, and then there's like hamstrings, but there was like this other really cool like sponge thing that they would like tie the ends of the ACL through, and it would like, I don't know, I did all this research on it, but it was pretty interesting. And so you wouldn't have to like harvest another tendon or muscle, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then I talked to Dr. Vopot about it too, and I was like, is this real? Like, does this actually work? And he like met the lady who did the study, and so it was pretty interesting doing a lot of different research things like that about it. But
Well, it sounds like, yes, we know how hard the emotional and mental issues are when these things happen, especially during the pandemic. It sounds like you were rehabbing your muscles and your physical body, but also your brain and your emotions as well. And that sounds great. You probably need to be one of our content experts for Dr. Vopat, Dr. Saliva, all these other orthopedic surgeons that I work with. But now, Audra, did you ever have to push Maggie to do PT?
I mean, I'm sure there were days, but she was really driven. That's kind of one of her characteristics. And one thing that really helped is she, her dad and I and her sisters, we tried to make it as fun as possible. And she had like a hit list that she would play while she was doing it, just so that she did it. But she really wanted to return. And if Kyle or Krisha told her to do something, she would do it. And if we tried to make her do something else, she'd be like, that's not what they told me to do. So she was, she was really, really driven to get back. And they had kind of told her typically how long it would take. And she was goal oriented to achieve that.
Yeah, I think that's great, you know, understanding and realizing your medical teams are here because they have the expertise and the knowledge, and they are working to try and make your life better. So I think that was a very good point you made. So if you have questions or comments for Maggie, Audra, Krisha, or Kyle, please send them in on social media using the links on your screen. And right now, let's take a little minute to take a look at our COVID count for today. So we have 53 total cases, 32 active cases, 6 in the ICU, 4 in the ventilator. They've still been fairly high number of active cases recently. Again, I'm treating a couple. Certainly, we even have young people. So the disease continues to be out there. Please, if you aren't up to date with your vaccine, if you haven't had the first a bivalent booster, please get that. That is all that's recommended at this time, but it does help reduce your risk of hospitalization and severe disease. We are looking for further recommendations probably to come out in a few months about moving forward in the fall. But as of this time, the virus still remains out there circulating in fairly high levels. We certainly know that influenza is quite a bit down, low activity across the United States as well as RSV. So we had an early peak a few months ago, but it's been good. Otherwise, nothing really on the horizon. I think we're doing pretty well. Remember, you're always able to use a mask. It is always good and safe to wear a mask if you feel uncomfortable. And also, please remember to continue to use adequate hand hygiene. Frequent hand washes or alcohol hand gels will help keep you healthy as well. All right, so there was a big moment during one PT session when Maggie had to stop using crutches. Let's watch.
I am so proud of you. Good job.
And so I think this is an important point. Kyle, how did you know Maggie was ready to walk on her own?
Yeah, so that's a great question. First and foremost, Maggie had to reach her time frame of that her healing ACL graft and meniscus repair were ready for adequate load. With her particular surgery and type of meniscus repair, this was going to be somewhere around 3 to 4 weeks. And then secondary, objectively, what does she look like and feel like? So does she have the adequate range of motion? Does she have good knee extension? They don't have to be perfect on knee extension, but they need to be pretty close to fully straight. And then kind of getting back to that quadriceps or that thigh muscle activity. Is she able to perform a straight leg lift, so laying flat on the table and just lifting her leg straight up without any type of bend in her knee? That kind of indicates to me that she has good and enough quad control. And if she's checking those objective boxes as well as her time frame of healing tissue, then she's ready to walk. And at that point, she had been progressing from 2 to 1 crutch. So she had done a few days with just 1 crutch, but that was the first time that I took her crutches from her and said, here you go.
And have you seen people, do you see people regularly, I guess, who don't meet those marks in that time frame and they're delayed a little bit?
Yeah, I say it's not a hard and fast or black and white time frame. We kind of use that as just a general guide. So I kind of tell people, like, at 3 weeks with this particular surgery, plus or minus, a week, then you'll be kind of ready to start walking. But typically, if someone is doing what they're supposed to do outside of physical therapy, coming to physical therapy and being compliant, they kind of hit those marks pretty regularly.
So then, Audra, how proud were you at that moment? Obviously, we saw you there.
It was great. I don't remember if we knew it was going. I don't know if we had an idea. I don't think so. But oh my goodness, just her being able to walk, because she hadn't walked. That would have been. She got injured at the beginning of August, and that would have been, I think, end of September maybe. So she hadn't walked since then, and to see her walk was just a relief and such a milestone.
I think a good milestone, but Maggie had months of PT still to go. So we're watching some of those sessions now. Maggie, how did you feel about PT? Was it fun or annoying or painful or all of them?
I mean, it was a little bit of all of that. I found myself at times being really annoyed with it, but also I kind of met like a big family in turn, and I got to really connect with all the PTs there. Like, now I walk in and I don't think there's a person who doesn't say hi to me. And so I think that was important in my life, but also at the same time, it was painful at some points. Like, one time Kyle made me walk when I wasn't ready before, and he was like, you should be able to walk on an ACL tear. But then it hurt, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that ever again. Mm-hmm. And so, but then eventually I walked, as you saw in the video. But yeah, but most of the time it was fun, because I wanted to get better. I liked the I don't know, being active, especially for not being active for so long. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, great videos, lots of strength and endurance, rehab for sure. But fast forward to 9 months after the injury, Maggie gets the green light to play again, but she continued to work on her knee. Krisha, you worked with Maggie on something called the ACL Bridge Program. What is that, and why is that important?
The ACL Bridge program is so important for all athletes who present with any biomechanical deficits that can put them at risk of injury or re-injury. It's especially beneficial to our post-operative athletes who are transitioning from physical therapy and getting back into functional sport. We put them in a controlled setting where we are focusing on their progressive strength training. We're focusing on any deficits that they're continuing to present with. We are focusing on dynamic jumping and landing, running, changing in directions, all the things that can put you at risk of injury, but it's in a controlled environment where we can make them feel safe to continue to do that in a functional environment. And also, it's a class setting, so most of these people have had some sort of knee injury, and they can get together. And as Maggie said, it's a big mental block going from being injured, sports being your entire life, and then now you're kind of stuck. And so having a group that understands what you go through as you're getting back into sport is it's fantastic.
That support group for sure. So Maggie, you got back to playing softball. Are you playing this spring?
Yes, I'm playing with my high school right now, and then this summer I'll play with my competitive team.
Okay. I bet that is a lot of traveling, so I'm sure your parents are happy. Well, good luck with that this summer. We know that those summer sports can be very time-consuming. But do you know what you want to do after high school?
Well, I don't know if I'll continue my like softball career in college. I don't know if it's one of my priorities then, but I want to go to, I'm not sure what college, I've visited a couple, but I want to become a PT, a physical therapist, because of the what I went through with the whole knee thing. So that was so that's what I want to study. So I'm going to study either kinesiology or exercise science, and then hopefully afterwards pursue a doctorate or whatever in physical therapy.
Wow. Well, I'm sure you will be great at whatever your final decision is, for sure. So, are there any reporters on the line today, or any questions? And looks like no. So let's check in with Jill Chadwick for community questions.
Good morning. I bet Kyle's head is swelling. And Christian, because no, that is so awesome. I really like it. But here's the question for you guys. Yvonne wants to know, what is the difference between an athletic trainer and a physical therapist? What's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference lies in number one, the education, but there's a lot of crossover in both of our professions. Krisha has a lot more on-field emergency action planning, acute management, versus a physical therapist is going to get a lot more in-depth on the rehab side of an injury, specifically in the acute phase, post-operatively or right after an injury in the clinic setting.
Okay, and Terry has a question for Maggie. Maggie, have you played volleyball since the injury?
I mean, I never went back and played for the high school or anything, but I have like played around with my sister outside, and I played sand volleyball, and we had this cool like team bonding thing for softball, and we like played like a pickup game of volleyball. So I guess.
I'm wondering how Mom feels about that.
Oh, I mean, she's good. I mean, she's ready. But I would be lying if I said it wasn't hard to watch her play volleyball the first time.
So I have one more question. This is from Lynn, and can someone heal without doing any physical therapy?
I'm assuming we're asking, like, does the ACL heal or can you improve? There is actually some research that supports there are copers for ACL injury, but typically those are going to be middle-aged to older adults who are not going back to any pivoting, cutting, shifting, high-velocity sports. So the short answer is yes, if you have an ACL tear, you don't always need surgery, but for majority of our young high school, collegiate, professional athletes, to be able to get back to the level of play that they want and need to be able to do, then yes, they would need not only physical therapy, but they would need to have an ACL reconstruction.
That's all from here.
That's all right. All right. Well, this has been a great discussion. Let's get some final thoughts from our guests. Krisha?
Thank you guys for having us today. Maggie is just a staple of the great orthopedics and sports medicine program that we have here at the University of Kansas Health System. We have those youth sports medicine athletic trainers out in the field at the high schools. They refer them to our best surgeons, and then they get them into here, and our goal is to get them back into sport and get them back into what they love.
Yeah.
So
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Kyle?
Yeah, again, thanks for having us. I would just say to Maggie, if we could have every single patient work as hard as you did outside of physical therapy, our job would be much easier.
Yes.
But I kind of piggyback off what Krisha said. She's kind of the model patient, the model athlete that we've had at our clinic, going through prehab, having surgery with the Performance Center, doing rehab, going through our ACL Bridge program, taking part in our performance classes, doing some athletic training services. So just kind of, she's captured it all, but she's a hard worker and a great patient.
And thank you both, just two people with knowledge and expertise, but most important, part of the medical team caring for you here at the University of Kansas Health System. Final thoughts, Audra?
Well, just thank you for everything you guys have done for us and having us today. Her dad and I just cannot say enough about the care that we received from top to bottom, starting with Caitlin, Dr. Vopa, everyone through her surgery, Kyle and Krisha. They just really took the time with Maggie, pushed her, but also knew how to help her handle her injury. And we could not be more pleased and more thankful for our experience.
Yeah. And Maggie, what about you?
I mean, this whole thing was a big part of my life. And like my mom was saying, just like from everyone who poured into my recovery, just thank you. And it really, I don't know, it changed me emotionally. It changed me obviously physically. And I'm just really thankful. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being on and sharing your story. And I think I'd like to talk about, prehab. I really think we are prehabbing every day. We are always asked, at the beginning of the pandemic, what can we do to improve our immune system? We heard this week about what can we do to improve our brain functioning. And it's really those same simple things, but sometimes they aren't so simple. But it's getting good nutrition. It's getting adequate sleep. It's being active. Prehabbing your body, the same thing, being active. And I know some people have an easier time doing that than others, but it just starts with one step and that desire to be able to do that. And being and trying to live that healthy life as much as possible will already put you in the driver's seat for moving forward and having to rehab any injuries that you may sustain. So otherwise, thank you for being with us today. Jill, over to you.
Yes, thanks to you, Dr. Hawkinson, and our guests and our viewers. And looking ahead, do you remember this guy? We're looking forward to next Wednesday, March 22nd, when Dr. Lee Norman is joining us on the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites. We'll be reflecting on the early days of the pandemic, when stay-at-home orders first started, and the risks of another pandemic. We'll see you here tomorrow for another episode of Morning Medical Update.
Coming up tomorrow on the Morning Medical Update, athletic performance starts with your dinner plate. Today's pro athletes plan out every calorie. Should student athletes do the same? I'm Jessica Lovell. Coming up on the next Morning Medical Update, the expanding science of sports nutrition, how highly customized diets can lead to an advantage. Thursday at 8. I'm Alexis Del Cid on the next All Things Heart.
It's like you're a walking time bomb. You don't know when it's going to explode. It's pretty terrifying,
A nationally acclaimed artist living in fear after being diagnosed with an aneurysm on her heart. How health system doctors saved her from that ticking time bomb and the beauty she's creating now because of it. Thursday morning at 10.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.